Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Chanda Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Chanda Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Paramahamsa. Parudikacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace. Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa. Parudikacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Uh-oh. That looks a little dim. Okay. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 7th day of May, 2019, in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are still in chapter 4, entitled Transcendental Knowledge. Text number 11 at the bottom of page 197. Ye yata mam papadyante tang tataiva bhajamyaham mama vartmana vartante manushya partha sarvashaha ye yatha mam papadyante tang tataiva bhajamyaham mama vartmana vartante manushya partha sarvashaha ye yatha mam papadyante tang tataiva bhajamyaham mama vartmana vartante manushya partha sarvashaha ye yatha mam papadyante tang tataiva bhajamyaham mama vartmana vartante manushya partha sarvashaha. Synonyms: yea, all who, yatha, as, mam, unto me, papadyante, surrender, tan, them, tatha, so, eva, certainly, bhajami, reward, aham, I, mama, my, vartma, path, anuvartante, follow, manushya, all men, partha, O son of Pritha, sarvashaha, in all respects. Translation: as all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Pritha. Purport: everyone is searching for Krishna in the different aspects of his manifestations. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is partially realized in his impersonal Brahmajyoti effulgence and as the all-pervading Supersoul dwelling within everything, including the particles of atoms. But Krishna is fully realized only by his pure devotees. Sorry, time out. Okay. All right, we are resuming now. Let's see, where did I end? Give me a hint. Particles of atoms? No, pure devotees. Consequently, Krishna is the object of everyone's realization, and thus anyone and everyone is satisfied according to one's desire to have him. In the transcendental world also, Krishna reciprocates with his pure devotees in the transcendental attitude, just as the devotee wants him. One devotee may want Krishna as the Supreme Master, another as his personal friend, another as his son, and still another as his lover. Krishna rewards all the devotees equally, according to their different intensities of love for him. In the material world, the same reciprocations of feelings are there, and they are equally exchanged by the Lord with the different types of worshippers. The pure devotees, both here and in the transcendental abode, associate with him in person and are able to render personal service to the Lord and thus derive transcendental bliss in his loving service. As for those who are impersonalists and who want to commit spiritual suicide by annihilating the individual existence of the living entity, Krishna helps also by absorbing them into his effulgence. Such impersonalists do not agree to accept the eternal, blissful personality of Godhead. Consequently, they cannot relish the bliss of transcendental personal service to the Lord. Having extinguished their individuality, some of them who are not firmly situated even in the impersonal existence render a return to this material field to exhibit their dormant desires for activities. They are not admitted into the spiritual planets, but they are again given a chance to act on the material planets. For those who are fruitive workers, the Lord awards the desired results of their prescribed duties, as the Yogeshwar. And those who are yogis, seeking mystic powers, are awarded such powers. In other words, everyone is dependent for success upon his mercy alone, and all kinds of spiritual processes are but different degrees of success on the same path. Unless, therefore, one comes to the highest perfection of Krishna consciousness, all attempts remain imperfect, as is stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam 2.3.10. Akama sarvakamo va mokshakama hodadadi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Whether one is without desire, the condition of the devotees, or is desirous of all fruitive results, or is after liberation, one should with all efforts try to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead for complete perfection, culminating in Krishna consciousness. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara. So this verse is very well known, and it elucidates a principle that is central to the process of bhakti. We should always remember that bhakti means the exchange of love between the Lord and the devotee. There's a relationship there, and Krishna is exactly reciprocates how we approach him. Even in the material world, this is why he says, everyone, sarvasha, all human beings are following my path. They're all on the path, meaning mamabhart manabhartante, meaning that they're also engaging in a certain kind of service, and they're getting the results. Those who are gross materialists, who couldn't care less about God and think there is no God or it doesn't matter, they're still serving Krishna's energy. They're serving him through the energy. The worship in the Bible is called the worship of mammon, right? So it means that entirely focused on the material world and how we can get as much pleasure out of it as possible, dominate a certain amount. In other words, the person's described in chapter 16, the demonic. But you can't get away from Krishna. Everything is Krishna. There's one verse in the Bhagavatam, idam hi vishwam bhagavani vetara. This is a verse by Narada Muni, the first line. And he says, idam hi vishwam bhagavan, that this universe is Bhagavan, or Ivetara, but it seems to be something different. Now, how is it Bhagavan? How is it Krishna? It's Krishna in the same way as when they walk into a big factory owned by a big industrialist, and we know it's a Ford factory or something. So we know that the head person, or groups of people, group of persons say, they're present in that whole factory because everything is geared toward making money. In other words, it's set up in such a way that that's the purpose for its being. That's the reason why it exists. So in one sense, they're there, not in the same way that Krishna is, because they're not all powerful. But still, you know that if you go there and you work, but you slack off, you don't do very well, you'll get fired because you're not meeting the purpose there. So in that sense, that person's will is present throughout that institution. So in the same way, but in more perfectly and absolutely, Krishna is present in every angstrom unit, in every square inch, cubic inch of his creation, as much as he is in the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, he's there directly. You can perceive him in his beautiful personal form, either as Vishnu or as Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan. And there's no question, everything is there. The purpose of everything there is to give him pleasure. And because we're part and parcel of Krishna, we also get pleasure in that way. And there's a reciprocation of loving exchange in one of these relationships, as a friend, as a servant, as a parent, or as a lover. In this material world, this is the world of forgetfulness. But still, it's still Krishna's world. Prabhupada sometimes he compares it to a prison house. Nowadays they have these private prisons, but they're still paid for by the government. But let's go back a few years where there was no private prisons, and it was all run by the government. So it's still the government in the prison, but you're in a different situation. You don't have the freedom because you violated the laws. You're under control of the government, but you're much more restricted than if you were out in the open land, because you're the good citizens. They're following the laws and so forth. They don't go after them. So this world, this is Durga, under the control of Durga, which means fortress or prison house, and we can't go. We're restricted, and it's such a perfect prison that we don't even know we're in prison. We think we're free. The prison, the bars are our material attachments. It said the main bar or the main shackle is sex desire, is sex life. Now remember, we talked about this yesterday, how kama is simply prema transformed. In other words, we have this certain desire. In the spiritual world, it's all mediated by what's called the ladini shakti. Ladini means pleasure. You know the word Prahlad? You've heard of Prahlad Maharaj. Lada, his name is Lada. So Prahlad, he was named Prahlad by his father because he thought he would give him so much pleasure. He didn't. But he's giving Krishna pleasure, Nrsimha's pleasure. So that's the meaning of his real name. So this word Lada means pleasure. Prahlad Halada Dayine. You know, there's a devotee named Prahladananda. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's an old devotee. He's a sannyasi. He's at GBC now. So for a long time, I never thought of what his name meant. Prahladananda. Prahladananda is a name from the Nrsimhadev. That which gives bliss to Prahlad. He who gives bliss to Prahlad, is he? Prahladananda. So, but the Ladini Shakti, personified as Srimati Radharani, is actually love for Krishna. That which gives him the most pleasure is when we love him without conditions, just because he's him, because he's so beautiful and attractive, you know, love. And it manifests in service. It manifests in activities to express that love. That's bhakti. So Krishna reciprocates those devotees in the most wonderful way. They're welcomed into the spiritual world, or they never leave the spiritual world. And he reciprocates in such a way as to intensify the love and to make it, the whole spiritual world is an ocean of ever-increasing bliss. There's no inebriety. Prabhupada's unique use of that word, inebriety. I mean, there's no negativity, no pain, no suffering, you know. Although there seems to be, there's variety. And the suffering there is in separation from Krishna. But the suffering is actually the greatest happiness. Because we should always remember that the amount of pleasure, spiritual pleasure you can experience in bhakti is proportionate to the intensity of your absorption in thinking of Krishna. And your ardent desire to serve him and to be with him and to see him and all these things. That's where the pleasure comes. But externally, it seems like pain. Just like every day when Krishna was on the earth, he would go out to herd the cows, right? So he goes out to herd the cows, and when he does that, the gopis are separated from him. Both the elder gopis, you should always remember there's a whole bunch of elder gopis who have a maternal affection for Krishna, and then there's the gopis as they're known, the younger gopis who have this conjugal madhurya ras for him. So all of them are separate from Krishna. And there's a great pain there. So how do they mitigate the pain? Let me look this up. I have this is my original iPad, an old-fashioned one. But I've got all the books on here. So let's see if this works. It's kind of unwieldy. It's kind of too big. But I use it a lot because I play this thing through it, you know. Anyway, so if we go to Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, chapter 35. This is titled "The Gopis Sing of Krishna as He Wanders in the Forest." I decided on that title because it has a little beat to it. The Gopis Sing of Krishna as He Wanders in the Forest. I kind of snuck it in. You got it? Okay. So the chapter begins Gopya Krishna vanam yate tamanudvita chetasa. Krishna lila pragayantyo ninyo dukena vasaran. Whenever Krishna went to the forest, the minds of the gopis would run after him. And thus the young girls sadly spent their days singing of his pastimes. Dukkha, it says dukkha, sadly. So there's a sadness there because they're separated. Then there's these beautiful prayers. I mean, this song, these are called the Yugal Gita. I can play this. Why not? It's just us. You ready? Actually, it's not just us. There may be some people out there. Forgive me. So here's how it sounds. Okay? This is actually what the gopis are doing. Yeah, it has a beat. It has a beat. There we go. Hello? All right. Vama baha kutabama kapolo volgitam vadadara venum kombalanga liberashatamagam gopihiri yati yattamukunda Vyomayana vanita sahasidha vismatasta dubadaya salanja kamamagana samapata chitta kashmalam mihuda pasmadanivya. Which means okay. Which means the gopis said, now they're speaking to each other, when Mukunda vibrates the flute he has placed to his lips, stopping its holes with his tender fingers. He rests his left cheek on his left arm. Now I used to play the flute, so that means he's got a long flute. You see? Playing like this. Okay? Left arm, left cheek. Yeah, the arm goes way out, like that. No, this has to go out too to play the flute. So he's got a long flute then. So he's playing that. And he makes his eyebrows dance, see? At that time, the demigoddesses traveling in the sky with their husbands, the siddhas, become amazed. As those ladies listen, they are embarrassed to find their minds yielding to the pursuit of lusty desires. And in their distress, they're unaware that the belts of their garments are loosening. So this is a little bit, intimate, but that's the only one. So then they go on, and they keep singing, Hanta chittam abalashanutedam. And it goes like, oh, I'm sorry. O girls, the son of Nanda, who gives joy to the distressed, bears steady lightning on his chest. Now this is a symbol of the goddess of fortune. He's got this little mark on there that looks like a little lightning. And this indicates that the goddess of fortune is always there on his chest. There's steady lightning on his chest and has a smile like a jeweled necklace. Now please hear something wonderful. When he vibrates his flute, Braja's bulls and deer and cows standing in groups at a great distance are all captivated by the sound, and they stop chewing the food in their mouths and cock their ears. Stunned, they appear as if asleep or like figures in a painting. So it goes on like this, and they're just meditating on Krishna as he's going into the forest. How the cloud, personified cloud, is afraid of drowning out Krishna with thunder, so it very carefully just thunders very gently in accompaniment to Krishna. How the river stops its flow and goes around in whirlpools and is waving its arms, the waves, hoping that the breeze will bring in a little dust from Krishna's lotus feet. How the cows are cocking their ears and drinking in the liquid nectar of the flute sound like this. It goes on, they're meditating. And they're going through the day. Then Krishna's coming back, and they're all, chanting. So at the end of this chapter, what does it say? Remember, the beginning says they sadly spend their days, right? Now the end says, Evam Brajastriyo Rajan. O king, Shukadev saying to O king, Parikit, thus during the daytime the women of Vrindavan took pleasure in continuously singing about the pastimes of Krishna, and those ladies' minds and hearts absorbed in him were filled with great festivity. Now what happened to the dukkha? What happened to the misery at the beginning of the chapter, right? There's separation. So this is a perfect example of what Lord Chaitanya came to teach. How love of Krishna, when at the highest levels, he reciprocates by appearing to you. right? He comes before you. Or in this case, they meet him in the morning, they see him as he goes out in the forest, But then there's that pain of separation. But that pain of separation, when the results of it is this upsurge of emotion and glorification and prayers. When will he come back? In other words, you're more intensely meditating on him because you have meeting and then separation. Without the meeting, the separation doesn't work. And then at the end, he comes back from the forest. There are whole poems written about how he's coming back from the forest. And the gopis, Mother Yashoda and the younger gopis, their hearts are beating faster, and then they're hearing the flute, Then they see the dust cloud, because he had all these hundreds of thousands of cows coming, and more and more. And finally he comes, and the young girls, they rush out of the houses, and they meet him, they glance at him, the sidelong glance, Then he goes to his house, and again there's separation, until sometimes they meet at night like that, So this is we're on text 11, if you're interested, 4:11. And it's a famous verse about how Krishna reciprocates exactly to how we approach him. Ye yatamam bhavadyante. So the whole idea is that we as spirit souls have a natural propensity to love Krishna. Nitya siddha Krishna prema sadhya kabanoy. Nitya siddha means the eternal perfection of Krishna prema is there in all of our hearts. It just has to be awakened. And then what's the main way it's awakened? Who can guess? You remember? Shravanadi. Shravana, adi. Hearing, etc. What comes after hearing? Chanting. And then if you hear and chant enough, you remember. You see? So, Shravanadi shuddha chitte. The consciousness becomes more purified, more and more purified by that hearing and chanting. That's why we're always stressing, classes, kirtans, read, absorb your mind. Kadayehu doi means it awakens naturally. It's already there. It's now been distorted and perverted into lusty desires and greed and all these different things. Just the opposite, which brings misery. But it's like a disease condition. When you get cured and purified, then that same ardent desire directed toward Krishna produces these wonderful effects of bhavas and ecstasies and things like that. So that's Krishna's reciprocation. He's reciprocating exactly for everybody. Even the lower animals, the plants, everyone. They're getting exactly what they deserved and gradually coming up to the human form of life. In the human form, we can understand this philosophy and guide our senses, do certain things that we're not spontaneously attracted to because we're conditioned, and not do certain things that we are attracted to because we know it's bad for us, and gradually purify the senses and mind so that you can experience these things. You can experience Krishna in your whole life, everywhere. Not just in the temple, but everywhere. Because don't forget, he's there in his energies. We learned that in chapter 7, a few chapters hence. Here's my material energy. Bhumar apa onalovayu kangmano buddha devasha. The earth, the water, the fire, the space, mind, intelligence, ego, fire. All these different things which we experience every day, we don't think of them as divine, but they are. They're nothing but Krishna's energy. And then he gives an example of how you can experience him in the daily affairs. You drink some water, that taste of water, that's me. It's through my energy that you're experiencing that. Your tongue is coming from me, the water itself, the reaction. It's all Krishna. Now, it only works when you use your intelligence and senses to try to engage these things in Krishna's service. Then that mitigates your desire to enjoy them separately, and you enjoy the experience of giving Krishna service and experience his reciprocation. That's pure pleasure. It doesn't depend on anything else except your consciousness. Even if you're very bedridden or invalid, if you're thinking of Krishna, if you're able to take pleasure in remembering him and serving him, even in your mind, then you can transcend the suffering. It still may be going on, you're conscious of it, but it doesn't have the same impact on you because you realize that's not really me. That's just my present condition. You see what I'm saying? So this verse is very key to understanding Krishna consciousness. It's a reciprocal arrangement. It's not just that you worship and pray that you won't get punished for all the sins that you're doing. That's not bhakti. The whole impetus, there's a certain amount, to keep you going, there's a certain amount of fear that should be there, healthy fear of Maya and taking rebirth. But that's just to get you going in the right direction. once you actually experience some of the positive aspects of Krishna consciousness, that should be drawing you on and making you serious. Now, to keep that edge and determination, that's the association is important. You need to be able to, associate with those who are on a higher platform and give you inspiration. But that's true of anything. If you want to become a football player, you meditate on the football players. You hang out with them. It's not going to help you ultimately, but that's the natural thing to do. So now Prabhupada quotes this verse, Akama Sarva Karma Va. Well, let's go through this purport. It's very illuminating. So he's saying that no matter what you aspire for in the absolute truth, Krishna is there to give you a reciprocation, the Brahma Jyoti, right? This famous Brahma Jyoti, the effulgence, the spiritual effulgence of Krishna, which the impersonalists are attracted to. There's a certain thing called Brahmananda. It's there. It means basically the elimination of all the suffering that we have from being in the material energy, being free of the sufferings of this material world caused by our attachment to it and everything. But it's very difficult to become detached just on the basis of your understanding, just knowledge. The whole thing with the impersonalists, it's all cultivation of knowledge, and that knowledge is meant to make us very strong, and determined not to engage in any kind of sense pleasure, because that just keeps us bound here. But you can see how that negative aspect, which is really based on fear. You remember the previous purport, this very illuminating purport, Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha, Manmaya Mama Pashada. This phrase appears again in the Bhagavad Gita later on. Being free from attachment, fear, and anger. Those three are like binding forces that keep the soul bound to the material world. So attachment, raga, right? It's kind of what happens when you're absorbed in lusty activities. Become very attached to that, and that inevitably produces fear. That's explained in the Bhagavatam. Bhayam tvidiya bandhavesha daksyat. That you get fearful when you get absorbed in the material energy. You forget about its relation to Krishna. You deny his existence or whatever. You turn your back. Ishadapetasya. And everything becomes topsy-turvy. Instead of being a servant, you try to be a master. That's unnatural for us, but that's what you're absorbed in. So what's the remedy? It's not rocket science. The remedy is turning back toward that same Isha, the soil, and worshiping him. According to the instructions of the Guru, which the last part is worshiping the Guru as one's Lord and Master and worshipful Lord, Guru Devatatma, one's very self. In other words, you need intervention from a person. You can't just be your own thing, I'm independent, I'm going to make my own system, I'll take this from this, this from this, this from that. Then you never get anywhere. Many of us, I know in the old days, a lot of the devotees who joined had been through this, through that. They tried this, tried that, this kind of yoga and all these things. People would come from the Catholic Church. They grew up and they had the image. That's the thing about the Catholics have the Mother Mary and so forth. So deity worship is not so alien. But in any case, it's not fulfilling for the soul just to base the approach toward God on fear or on material desire. Krishna talks about that in next chapter. Chatur vidha bhajante mam jana sukhutanarjuna. There's 4 classes of pious people who come to me. Those who are distressed, big group, huge group. Those who are after some material thing, arti, money or whatever. Those who are curious, and those who are in real knowledge. So, out of those 4, Krishna praises the jnani, those who really know something and they want to know me in truth. But the others are also pious, because they're Hare Krishna. Welcome. Darshan, we have 8:15. 8:15. You have 8:15. Yeah. They're all pious because your desires can change. In the material world, the desires are very fluid. You want something, just like you grow up. I mean, everyone has experience. Your desires when you're 11 are not the same as your desires when you're 14. There's a big difference, you know. They keep going, changing, right? So the same thing happens on the spiritual plane. Is that we're just finishing up this wonderful pastime of Dhruva Maharaj. The whole thing is the evolution of his desire through his determination and purification. He started out with a huge material desire. He wanted a big kingdom, you know. But what was the means? Following Narada Muni's instructions, which is basically bhakti yoga. Chanting the holy name, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, being completely, you know, very austere, withdrawing his senses from any sense gratification, you know, meditating on the Lord within the heart. Narada gave him a nice description of the super soul. He's meditating, chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And meanwhile, you know, reducing his eating practically to nothing, eventually just breathing once a day, you know. So with all of that, he became very pure, and the desire was completely changed. He lost the desire for the kingdom totally, so that anything in this material world, even in Brahmaloka, is like broken glass compared to what I'm experiencing now. He offered this prayer to Vishnu when he appeared before him. I'm seeing you. Your darshan is like great jewels of spiritual realization compared to the broken glass of anything material. So he completely evolved. So that happens for anyone. I mean, people come to Krishna Consciousness, many people are just curious, or they're intrigued by something they read in a book, you know, like that, which is good. It means there's a certain intellectual commitment, you know. And if one is sincere enough to hang out, you know, take some prasadam and maybe chant. As soon as you chant, you're getting direct in touch with Krishna through the holy name, and the purification becomes very rapid. So Krishna is reciprocating, and in this age especially, he very liberally, you know, Lord Chaitanya is known as Mahavadanyaya. You know that verse, Namo Mahavadanyaya? What does Mahavadanyaya mean? Yeah, actually munificent. Yeah, since this is my field, words, there's a difference between munificent and magnanimous. Magnanimous is almost is a more attractive word in a sense, magnanimous, you know. But really, one is, you can think, giving, that's munificent. Vadanya, you know what dana is? Dana means gift, is a charity, right? And so vadanyaya means a charitable person, or most charitable, or munificent. Munificent means giving freely. Magnanimous means forgiving. If someone, magnanimous person, he's, you know, someone may insult him or have some offense, and he's very forgiving. Not necessarily giving, you know. Prabhupada tends to use them interchangeably, but there's a slight difference. But in any case, Lord Chaitanya is giving out freely the greatest treasure, prema. Prema, dhan. Dana and dana are totally different words. Every time I go to Alatra, they have this beautiful temple and beautiful deities. In the back, they have a program of giving donations to feed the poor. It runs like a Food for Life program, you know. So it's called. So they made this big sign, elaborate sign, in the back of the room, you know, printed it up nicely. Anna Dhan, D-H-A-N-A. It's not Anna Dhan. It's Anna Dan. You understand? D-A with a long A means gift, but they have Anna Dhan. Someone didn't know what they were doing, and I said, "Oh man, they're going to fix that sign." Probably not. Means the treasure of grain. Anyway, this is what a proofreader has to go through. I can't just read something. I can't just read Prabhupada's books. I'm reading, is that correct? You know, no one reads it like that. I mean, it says, oh, it's always correct. But it's not always correct. That's anyway. So, Krishna is reciprocating, and even those who want to approach the Brahma Jyoti, you know, you can do that, and you can get realization, which is, Brahmananda is millions of times more pleasurable than sense gratification. It's said it's like an ocean of Brahmananda compared to the drop of water of sense gratification. Can't be compared. But Premananda is an ocean compared to the drop of water of Brahmananda. Because Brahmananda is based on, there's like a graph. Prabhupada talks about this. He didn't use the word graph, but he meant that. Imagine the x-axis. Is the x-axis the one that goes horizontally? Yes, y is vertical. Anyway, for us purposes, y is vertical, x is. So the x-axis is time, okay? And the y-axis is how much you're enjoying. And so you have 0 point also, because in the material world you have a lot of suffering. So you have to have a minus section too, right? So in the ordinary material consciousness is more or less always below 0. There's all kinds of suffering. Even if you're not, severely suffering some disease or something, there's always the danger of it. And that fear is itself a kind of suffering, isn't it? Anxiety, stress. So then, how do we mitigate this? Well, we have our sense gratification, so we can forget. If you have some intense gratification, at least while you do that, you can forget that you're in a suffering condition, right? But then it ends, that's the nature of it, and then you're back to suffering. So within that realm, there's those who are suffering less. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on, but it's all below 0. It's all more or less suffering. So Brahmananda brings you up to the 0 point, meaning that you have the complete bliss of absolutely no suffering. You don't even have a body anymore. You're just living as in pure spirit. But no, you're not in the natural condition because you don't have the spiritual form, no spiritual activities, no nothing. You're just merging. It's like eternal sensory deprivation. Temperature is perfect. There's nothing impinging. But does that sound pleasant? Not really. It's the pleasure that comes when you're in the hospital. You just had an accident. You're in traction. One of your legs is broken or something. And so, it's getting warmer, so we're going to start seeing insects crawling. There's one coming toward you right there. As soon as it gets a little warm, they start invading from the garden. They're very fortunate amongst all insects, even if they get stepped on by a devotee, lotus dust, foot dust. So, it's like you're in the hospital, and you had this serious accident, and you're in traction, and you can hardly take care of yourself. It's just misery. I don't know if you ever had that. I was in the hospital for a month with a serious hepatitis. This was back in '69. It's 50 years ago. But it was like the worst experience of my life. I felt miserable. The only thing that mitigated it would happen to be exactly the time of the first moonshot. Now nowadays we doubt that it happened, but in those days, it was so enlivening to see the first walk on the moon, It kept me alive in a little bit. Anyway, I recovered. But, while you're in the hospital, all you can think about, when can I, get out of this traction? My arm will be healed. I won't have this pain, you know what I mean? And then if you actually achieve it, you say, bliss. But that's not the end of it. Then you leave the hospital and you got to take up your regular life, right? You don't just sit down on the curb and say, my life is done. Now I'm just going to sit here being cured. So that's Brahmananda. The absence of any kind of suffering, any kind of pain. And you can live there for, who knows, millions of years, whatever, But eventually, you get bored. There's this nice verse in the Bhagavad, in the 4th canto, the teachings of the 4 Kumaras to Maharaj Prithu. I always remember these because I proofread the whole thing. That was my first main proofreading. And so, this verse probably quoted quite often. Yat pada pankaja palasha vilasa bhaktya karma shayam goditam udgatayanti santa. Santa is another word for saint, like SanDiego, Santa Rosa. And it means devotees. So the devotees, pada pankaja palasha vilasa bhaktya, by bhakti, loving devotion, to the tips of the toes of Krishna's lotus feet. Pada pankaja means lotus feet, and palasha, that's the petals. So the petals of the lotus feet are the toes. So he's serving that, with great love and devotion. And that's giving you vilas, which means spiritual pleasure. Pada pankaja palasha vilasa bhaktya. So what's the result? One of the results is karmashayam goditam udgatayanti, that the knots in the heart, which are all of the desires for material pleasure, it's called karmashaya. The aspirations for karmic pleasure, for fruit of pleasure. Karmashayam gratitam udgratayanti. They're untied or cut. In other words, it completely obliterates your material desires. And they don't come back. If you keep that service and you're steadily serving Krishna, then you're cured of the disease of material desire. Gratitam udgratayanti santa. But it's only for the devotees. Others, tadvan rikta matayo yatayo viruddha sotaganas bhajavasadevam. Others means the ordinary materialists. They're hopeless. But even the jnanis and the yogis and others whose minds are devoid of bhakti. That's what rikta matayo means. They may, like the jnanis or the impersonalists, they may remain fixed for some time. Who knows, maybe thousands of years, But eventually, the unfulfilled material desires, which is still there, because you haven't taken your spiritual body and not engaging in spiritual activities, they win out and you're swept away. And there's so many accounts of that in the Bhagavatam. Durvasa Muni, who was this great yogi, but he was very prone to anger, because no one would give him enough respect. That in itself is a sign of, conditioned life. To be very austere and renounced and learned in the Shastras and to be proud of it, it's completely material, And some of the yogis get into that. I have more siddhis than this one has. Or if I don't have, I have to work on getting it because it's completely material. So eventually you lose out and you come down again. This is the demigod's prayers also. So this is not secure, the Brahma Jyoti. Everything is reciprocal. Then at the end here he quotes a key verse. Akama sarva kama va moksha kama udaradi. Sukadeva is saying near the beginning of the second canto that whether one is free of all material desires, the devotees, sarva kama va, full of all material desires, the karmis, or moksha kama, or you notice it's use the word kama, intensely desire liberation, one who's intelligent, udaradi, tivrena bhakti yogena, he intensely practices bhakti yoga, devotional service, to whom? Purusham Param, the Supreme Person, Krishna. Now this verse comes after a whole listing of demigods and goddesses who you can worship for material purposes. If you want to get a beautiful wife, you worship Urvasi, I think. If you want health, you worship Surya. If you want powerful sex life, you worship Indra. There's a whole laundry list. And but then he said, but if you want, no matter what you want, you do the best thing you can do is worship Krishna, Tivrena, because then your whatever material desires you have and your desires for yogic siddhis, for liberation, it's all material because it's centered on me, what I want. Spiritual means to be in a position and have the mentality of service to Krishna, service to God. And because we're part and parcel of God, that brings out our own best interests. That's the whole idea. We always, in bhakti, we emphasize the difference. But Lord Chaitanya's philosophy is a chincha beda beda tattva. Inconceivably, simultaneously, one with and different from Krishna. That includes everything, and even ourselves. But we shouldn't forget the oneness. We emphasize the different because that enables the bhakti. But the reason why the bhakti is so fulfilling and can go on eternally is because we're also one with Krishna. And when we serve him, we're also serving our best own interests, although we may not think of it that way primarily. But that's just like watering the root of the tree. We're watering the root of the tree, and the trunks and the twigs and the flowers and the fruits and the leaves, they all get nourished. So Krishna is the root. When you direct your energy towards serving the interests of Krishna, you, being one of those fruits or flowers, you also flourish. And that's how it works. That's yayatama bhajante. So this is a very important verse to remember, is that Krishna will exactly reciprocate as we approach him. If we're really sincere and pray from the bottom of our heart, to please let me get over these anarthas so I can experience you more. Let me increase the taste for the chanting. You can, if you chant Hare Krishna, there's a mentality behind it. There's always something behind it. It could be all right, let me try it. I'm going to see what it can do for me. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna. I tried so many other yoga processes. That's okay. You still, but that's not going to get you prema. Eventually, you want to chant from the bottom of your heart. There's this one verse that Kunti, in her prayers, and we'll have to end here. She says, Janmaishraya Shuta Shribir Edamana Madakpaman Naiva Hatya Bedhatam Vai Tvama Kinchana Gochara. So Krishna you're a Kinchana Gochara. You are approached by those who don't claim anything for their own in this world. Not an easy platform. So she says, you are very easily approached by the process of chanting your name, which is understood. The whole verse is about chanting the name. But those who are too much involved, too much progressively intoxicated with these four basic opulences, good birth, which we don't even know about in America, but that's we know one good birth, wealthy family. That's good. So Janma Aishwarya, wealth, Shuta, high education, and bodily beauty. These people hanker for all these, So if you're into those, and you're really, intoxicated by that, you may chant, but you can't chant from the bottom of your heart, because you're taking shelter of these opulences, So he says, you're a Kinchana Gochara. So this idea, it's brought out beautifully in the purport. And anyone can chant, but there's a quality to the chanting. So improving the quality of the chanting, how we're approaching Krishna, how we're absorbed in the holy name and taking shelter, that he will reciprocate and give us more realization. And, the first reciprocation is we become more and more detached from those anarthas, the things that we're doing. Okay, we kind of went over time. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.